Hi everyone, welcome back to Perky Pineapples. If you're new here, I'm Vina, a plant-based recipe developer and food blogger. And today we're starting a series on cheap and easy plant-based dinners that you can make without breaking the bank. All right, so today we're starting out with probably one of the simplest of the three, which is my Tofu Ricotta Stuffed Shells. Really simple ingredients, really inexpensive ingredients, and there's no chopping. Don't have to pull out a knife for anything. So I've got these jumbo shells. I have yet to be able to find like a protein version of any of these, which I don't really think we'll need in this case because we've got our tofu, which is going to provide a lot of it. But just these larger shells, I just have them laid in my dish because I wanted to see if I could, how many I could fit into my dish. We're going to make about 20 of these, which I think one block of tofu should be enough for. I've just got some run-of-the-mill tomato sauce here. If, making your own tomato sauce is your jam, then even better if you got, a tomato garden or something fun like that. We'll need some apple cider vinegar, some nutritional yeast, because what is any type of vegan cheese version of anything without some nutritional yeast? I've got some frozen spinach here that we're going to use because your girl likes to add greens to almost anything that she makes. I've got some garlic powder, some Italian seasoning, and some salt here, and some olive oil. So like I said, super simple. A lot of these things you'll already have in your pantry. I know I've always got olive oil, always got these two guys. And I mean, let's be real. If you're in a Black household, we've always got onion powder and garlic powder in the house, but you got garlic powder and onion powder usually, and you may just have to go out for Italian seasoning. But seasonings, I feel, are an investment up front, but then they pay off a lot later because you can use them multiple times. So you're either going to use a blender or a food processor. Sometimes I use my food processor, but what I found is I have a cutie patootie small one. Gets a little overcrowded in there. So we're going to use the blender. And this is like my new Vitamix, which I'm really excited about. Husbandtron behind the camera may have to help me with it because I am not particularly used to using it. He makes our smoothies in the morning, so I haven't used it much. So I have a firm block of tofu here that I have pressed for probably about 45 minutes or so and gotten a lot of the moisture out. I kind of like to add my own moisture if needed. So I do have some almond milk on deck just in case, but we may not need it in this case. But I do press it because I don't want the tofu to be soggy, and I don't know. I want my tofu to suck up as much of the flavors from everything else. So usually extracting the water out of it is a good idea. So I'm just going to break it up and put it into the blender. That is apparently very far away from me right now. Okay, so I realized that my blender was way too far away from me and my little short hands. So like I said, I am just gonna break up the tofu here just to help the blender out. This probably doesn't really need my help, but I don't know, it makes me feel better. And throw all the chunks in there. It doesn't have to be really small or anything like that. And actually what I've realized is in the meantime, I should probably have these shells in my boiling water, which is behind me. So I'm going to take my shells and get them boiling. So that was important because while that's going, then we're doing all of this, and that way we're utilizing our time, especially if you're making this on a weekday and you're trying to have dinner on the table, in less than an hour. This one, I would love to say it takes 30 minutes, but I would say maybe 45 at the most because it's going to go into the oven for a little bit. But yes, let's continue with our tofu ricotta. So tofu's in. I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Just splash that in. And hopefully that'll be enough moisture. But again, the texture and how smooth you want your tofu to be is going to be totally up to you. I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. Okay. And some garlic powder. My salt. That always wants to stick to my little dish. And and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And again, this should help add some moisture back, but the kind of moisture that we want. We want fat, we want that acid, all of that, and not just tofu water. All right. And then I'm actually going to wait on adding our Italian seasonings, mostly because I don't want it to, I don't want to break down my Italian seasonings, and I don't want to break down my spinach just yet. So we're going to go ahead and pop that on and get this blended until it's nice and smooth and creamy. All right. How do I work this thing? Let's see. All right, so I've added in my frozen spinach. I did let it thaw a little bit before adding it in, and my Italian seasonings. I really didn't want to blend with the spinach and the Italian seasonings in because, one, I didn't want the seasonings to break down, and I also didn't want my ricotta to turn green from the spinach. But obviously, if you're trying to save time, just throw it all in there. The flavors are just gonna be pretty much the same, and I mean, you're just gonna have green ricotta, and that's not a big deal. Maybe it'll be a little easier for your kids. All right, so it's time to stuff our shells, but I am going to put a layer of sauce on the bottom of my baking dish, and actually we're just gonna pour the whole thing of sauce on the bottom of the baking dish. I don't know why I said a layer, like I'm gonna pour sauce over it, because our little shells are gonna be in a nice little bed of sauce here. So perfect amount of sauce. Now, I am a baker. In my spare time, I like to bake for therapy, so I have pastry bags. You do not have to use a pastry bag to stuff your shelves, even though I will say, for me, this is the fastest and easiest way for me to do it. So I just have like a run-of-the-mill little pastry bag here. You could probably use a Ziploc bag if you wanted to, but you could also use a spoon and open the shells up and kind of scoop and put them inside. I am not as coordinated with my hands to want to do that, so I'm not going to do that. But I am going to fill up the bag a little bit with some of the ricotta. And usually what I do is just fold the bag over a little bit. I may not be able to get all of it in there in one go. I'm gonna try though. I'm definitely gonna try. I usually just kind of push it down into the bag a little bit. There we go. And then, like I said, you kind of fold it around your fingers a little bit so that you have like that lip there. So you're not getting filling on the edges of the bag. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a big mess. At least if you've never filled a pastry bag before. Some of you may have, and you already know what to do. But it does look like I'm gonna fit all of my ricotta into the bag. It just takes a little coordination. My bowl doesn't have any grip at the bottom, so it was like spinning around on me. All right. We don't want to leave any of that behind, so forgive me. I'm just gonna scrape my bowl a little bit here and get it on there. There we go. I think we got a little on the edge, but it's not that bad. All right, so then I let it fold over, and I probably shouldn't do this over the sauce. Fold it over and just give it kind of a shake to start getting it to come down the bag. There we go. All right, and then usually what I'll also do is once you get that top filled, kind of press the top together, give it a little bit of a squeeze, and then you're not gonna be able to do much else until you cut a hole in it. You don't want to cut too big a hole, but I'd say leave maybe about 1.5 inches so that it's enough for you to squeeze into your shell. So I'm just going to cut that end off. I might cut off a little bit more. There we go. And then I can push it down a little bit. I might have overfilled it just a little bit because I was ambitious. So I may get a little bit of filling on my hands, but that's okay. All right, so I'm starting with my first shell here. Like I said, it's a little easier to do with a pastry bag, even though it takes just a little bit more up front. And I'm just gonna stick it inside, give it a squeeze, fill it up inside. And I like to fill it up with a pretty good amount until you can see a little bit of it coming out. And then you've got a perfectly filled shell. And then you just place it into that nice little bed of sauce. Oh, it looks good already. I can't believe I haven't made this for you guys yet. This was actually one of the first recipes that I developed for quirky pineapples. And I feel like I used to make it almost all the time. And I was so proud of it because after you bake it, I mean, gosh, like it is a really delicious dish. But I'm not sure why I stopped making it so often. But yeah, this is one of the OG recipes from Quirky Pineapples. And it's so interesting because Quirky Pineapples actually did not start out as a food blog. It actually started out as a blog for me to chronicle my infertility journey, which I don't talk about very often. It's not a journey that I'm on anymore. At least that's the way that I see it. But at the time, I was dealing with infertility, and pineapples are actually a sign of hope for that. And so I started up Quirky Pineapples kind of to chronicle the things that I was going through and my hopes and desires and all of that. And I had transitioned to being plant-based in an effort to help me with that. And as much as we would love to, kind of think that certain changes that you make holistically will, help. For some people it does. In my case, it didn't. But I actually fell in love with being plant-based and eating the way that I do because it did make me feel really good inside. So I just continued. And I realized that I've always really loved cooking. So I realized that I really wanted to keep the cooking part. And Quirky Pineapples actually ended up evolving into something completely different than what it started out as. I don't think I've ever really shared that. Most of you probably don't know that if you've been with me for a while or you've been doing my recipes. But yeah, Quirky Pineapples did not start out as a food blog in the beginning. But I am happy that it did evolve into one because I absolutely love to cook. I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the oven on 375 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. You can cover them or not cover them. I kind of like to leave them uncovered because usually I like to throw some sauce over it and let the sauce caramelize on top. But if you don't want to do that, then I would say cover it with some aluminum foil. But I'm going to pop these in the oven for a little bit, let them get all nice and cooked. Because the ricotta, even though, yes, you can eat the ricotta as it is, the texture changes as it bakes to be more like a crumbly ricotta. I don't know how to explain it. It's just really good. So I'm going to put this in the oven and let these bake, and then we'll be back for all our plating and our garnishes and all that good stuff. All right, so our shells are all done. They're still a little piping hot, so I added some Parmesan cheese on the top. Vegan, of course. Now, that's an extra. If it's in the budget to get a little bit of vegan parm, then by all means. But if not, it's still good without it. So I usually like to have about 4 of these. And you should be able to get about 4 servings out of this. Ooh, looks really good. I usually like to have about 4. It's piping hot. And then I usually like to take some of the sauce and just kind of like drizzle it over. Oh yeah. It's gonna be very good. All right, let's give it a taste. Hopefully it's not too hot. Okay, a little bit more parm. Why not? Again, the Parmesan is totally optional. You could also sprinkle the top with a little bit of nutritional yeast. Oh gosh, yeah. Trying to get it apart. I'm probably gonna burn myself for you guys. It's good. It's really good. I don't know if you can see, but the ricotta has kind of, like I said, the tofu's kind of broken up and made this really nice like ricotta like texture, which is really good. I don't want to annihilate my shell trying to show you, but it turns out really good once you bake it, so that texture changes a little bit. All right, and there you have it. That's our first budget-friendly meal. very cheap to make. So if you would like this recipe, it is on quirkypineapples.com. I'll also put the information in the description box to make it simple for you, or I'll put my QR code here as well so that you can scan it if you're watching this on the television. Also, if you're new to being plant-based, I do have a completely free plant-based grocery guide that can help you out immensely, especially right now if you're trying to save money. So I'll make sure I leave the link in the description below for that as well. But yeah, next week we're going to be making a delicious potato and lentil kale stew, which I think you're gonna really love. So yeah, thanks again for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.